we will go on directly to conversation with these people who have their stories to tell. But according to Gruyon, only in chants, no?
Hi, Roland Wazon, a moral theology professor at St. Vincent's School of Theology. I am happy to listen to the presentations this afternoon, particularly with what Dr. Gonzalez presented in terms of having stories, theology as a way to go for future, in the future. I think this carries a lot of potential because it is here where we see that we can actually engage interculturally and be able to learn from one another as we enter into different stories embedded in many different cultures. But on the other hand, as I reflect on that, I am wondering whether we could also realize that many stories, be personal or be social, stories and myths that form part of our tradition could also be reinforcing certain arrangements that are actually very oppressive and unjust. And it is here that we see somehow the wisdom of critical rationality, okay, which was somehow imparted to us through modern rationality when we come from the West. The capacity to be able to have a more distantiated view the way we look at our own stories and our own tradition. My question is, you mentioned also about when you encounter another story, this cannot actually open up and be a source of possible critique to your own. Yes, but does that mean, first, that we're giving up on that capacity of modern rationality that has helped us to develop critical rationality and have a more distantiated view on how we assess reality, particularly embedded in stories? Second, are there other potential sources that you find in narratives that actually could be a source of criticism and develop and allow possibilities for the marginal voices to be heard to that matter?
Thank you, Father Roland. When I said that this story theology will be among, so I'm not saying it will be the only one and that it should be the only one. So, in fact, much of theology we've been doing here in the Philippines and much of Roman Catholic theology has been following precisely the model of, you could say, logocentric, okay? Very much about, well, it's because also of the heritage of philosophy, for example. So I don't think we should give that up, but since we're talking about what needs to be given attention to the future, so if one goes into story theology, if, for example, I was trained, I'm not trained in story theology, I'm like many of us were trained in Western theology. So, I don't think I should give that up, but we're talking about what will be offer what will be fruitful for the future, especially here in Asia. Given that, especially what kinds of theologies do we need that will resonate, especially in the households, in the families, in the kinship networks, in the ecclesial communities. So, of course, the theology we're used to that uses a lot of rationality resonates among us academics, okay? But we're talking now of making theology also more accessible. So, I don't think it should be given up. That's a strength still, but if one can combine both, that they can be mutually enriching, they can challenge each other. So, but I agree that for example, philosophy, I'm not saying we should give up philosophy. It can help precisely in creating the hidden stories that can open up the stories. Because many compelling stories inside and outside the Bible have been domesticated. Okay? And we need to again bring out their engaging strangeness. And I think other disciplines can also help in provoking the imagination there. So I wouldn't give it up also. Maybe some of my colleagues would like to add something.
Since stories are another form of aesthetic creativity, I do feel a lot of connections to what you've been saying. And I've been thinking about, I work with images more than stories. I've been thinking about the tension between the capacity of images to affirm norms or be oppressive, affirm oppressive norms, but also provide a space of resistance. And sometimes both things are happening within the same image, or I could imagine within the same story. Because you've been asking about possibilities for resistance from within storytelling, and I think one possibility or one potential that stories or images or other creative forms have is that they are polysemic. They have lots of different meanings, lots of different voices, different readings, so you can use them to reinforce ideologies or norms, but then there's always all that other stuff going on underneath that can, bubble up or be brought up in different contexts and by different people and unfold if it's giving nourishment and asked for or thought about.
Let me just add that I'm reading this book written by a female rabbi, and where she explains midrash, and she shares her own practice of how she opens up the biblical stories. Many biblical stories seem oppressive to women, but through the practice of midrash, creating stories between the lines of the story. Remember that even our teachers in literature will tell us, read between the lines, use your imagination. So she is able to reinterpret the biblical stories that make them liberating to women. It's not easy, but it is possible.
Stephanie had been sharing to us resonates my own personal history and my own personal context. I am a Gen Xer by generation. And we know the definition of Gen Xers. We were the first ones to say we do not care. And we used stories. We created our own stories through music, through arts. Actually, the Western world first started the stories of resistance, even if they don't have that inkling of theologizing. Those comics were branded as, radical, rebellious, anti-moral at times. But it often resonated upon us as stories. It was my first discovery into a bigger world. It may sound peculiar to some, but stories about Spider-Man, the X-Men, particularly their struggle, their stories of struggle, their acceptance. This was actually a blend of storytelling and art. Music came in later on. Some told us it was noise, but it was actually stories of resistance. Resistance of what the older generation was trying to spoon-feed to us. And later on, these particular stories, I've outgrown them, not so much to resist the tradition, but to integrate what the tradition was telling us later on. Yes, we felt at first this resistance from tradition because they did not understand us. But later on, these stories of tradition kind of meshed in and let us understand where were they coming from later on. That we were able to see, ito pala yung sinasabi. This is what we're saying in the past. They just used a different language. We understand now with the wisdom that was coming into us later on in life. That's the first point. The second point that I would like to comment is that this blend of that mesh of stories are the things that I use in my personal context of education. Sometimes when I tell doctrines, dogmas in my class, in a religion class, it doesn't make sense to them. But when you associate it with the particular story, they somehow, the young students that came in my class somehow remember. They don't remember my lessons. They don't remember the concepts. They more remember the stories. They more remember the art. They more remember the movements they made in class. Some particular young people are already expressing their own stories, their own art, their own perceptions by the senses in the virtual space. Particularly in social media, that's the starting point. But later on through other avenues. And if you would look at the virtual space, there are so many expressions of stories from the young people today. And I could imagine, in our using of story theology and eisegetic theology, could we also consider the virtual space? Because in fact, this is where the young people are coming in, creating their own stories, creating their own world. Sometimes the stories that they tell saddens us, terrifies us. But if you would look at it closely, it opens our eyes into their world. And how could we establish a story, not so much a counter story, but a story that blends into their own story, that we may find the truth together, particularly not just as hearers of the stories, but becoming more as subjects of history.
Okay, thank you. Stories are transgenerational. We have heard somebody from Generation X. May we hear some stories from the millennials or the women, the millennials, not those who think that they are millennials. Okay. Hi.
Hi, my name is Jonel, a student from SBST. Okay. First, let me speak about my first of all, sorry, I'm not good in speaking English, so let me have my código. Okay. My context first. I had an opportunity to live among the fisher folks in the small island in Cebu, namely Tulangdiot. Masses are said at least once a year for the fiesta, Feast of St. Peter. Okay. This question is addressed to Professor Enrico. Okay. You made mention that the centrality of baptismal dignity and missionary activity are central to the role of the laity according to the documents of the Vatican II. But we cannot also deny that there is a sort of division to the task of doing prophetic mission. That the liturgical preaching, quote unquote, according to what you say, is for clergy. And that the matters like socio-political is to the laity. In the Archdiocese of Cebu, lay ministers are sent out to the barrios or faraway villages to perform the kasaulugan sa pulong or the liturgy of the word without the consecration for sure. Every Sunday, these lay ministers are preaching in the context of a liturgy, a sort of a homily. This kind of liturgy, or shall I say in the eyes of the liturgical Nazis, paraliturgy, makes the faithful survive and gave them a place in making sense of their faith, even without the priest. Through the interactive faith-life sharing of their reflection of the gospel. The problem is this. They are not allowed, these lay ministers are not allowed to speak about the scripture and the teachings of the church. Pointers for reflection are given by the priest. They should not extend their hands. They should not say, "Let us pray." The question is, why is that?
As I told before, the first task of theology is to pose a good question. And you have posed a good question. But really, I don't have an answer for this kind of this kind of question. I think that it is difficult also for other people to give an answer to this question. But the question is that, as I try to say very briefly, that in this moment there are certain canonical and doctrinal indications that don't allow to go further. But it is evident that in a very next future, and in the present also, as you show, there will be the necessity to promote this role of the laity in the preaching. But I think that it's important to promote this role not only due to an emergency, but just because if the council have said that the laity has a central role in the church, because each person which receives the baptism has a particular grace, and so it is a role, he or she has a role, we have to be subsequent to this indication. And up to now, it prevails the resistance to these affirmations of the indication of the Second Vatican Council. I think that during, I'm not so old, but there are many persons younger than me. I think that by the end of our lives, we will see many things to change, because it is a necessity, and things happens.
Okay, some more from the partners. I think the minister should be declericalized or totalized. Let us pray. Okay. Please. Introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. I am Fian Louis Pareja from the Graduate School of Theology, Mother of Good Counsel Seminary, Pampanga, a millennial also. So this is not a question, rather a comment and a sharing based on my personal observation and comments with this talk. With the thoughts from Steph and Dan, I realized that we millennials are challenged to do our part. We are fertile ground for the church for new evangelization through storytelling and aesthetic theology. I myself is an active millennial in social media. I have my Instagram account, I have my Facebook, I have my Twitter, YouTube, etc. We are active and sometimes we don't know where to put our energies. Yeah. Aesthetic theology and storytelling can be good mediums for us to express ourselves. 50% present here are millennials. We are hungry of knowledge, we are hungry for knowledge, and at the same time, we are pregnant with new ideas on how to contextualize all of this based on our own experience. I'm dreaming that one day, the millennial theologians are the ones who are sitting there, sharing our thoughts and ideas regarding theologies, etc., based on our personal experience. And the old ones are listening to us, learning also from us. Thank you.
Okay, I never realized there are too many of us here. Okay, just one more question, please, because we have to cut off. Just one. Oh, we give. Okay. Please.
Country that never been colonized in Asia, so you know each country. This is not the question, but I would like to thank you, all the speakers, for your perspectives, and it's very valuable sharing. And I think the theology of the future, we have a lot of hope, and I would like to share about our situation in Thailand. 2 years ago, there was a synod of Thailand. Christianity came to Thailand in 16th century, but they called the Christianity as European religion, not Asian, not from Asia at all. But 2 years ago, they would like to emphasize on new evangelization, the new horizon of new evangelization in Thailand. They would like to focus very much on 6 horizons, on ministry for the poor, dignity of human being, and care for creation, enculturation, ecumenism, and interreligious dialogue. And I think that we are moved on the right direction after listening to all the speakers and in this conference, that I think we are moved on to the good future. And thank you very much.
Okay, we apologize. We know that you have so many questions, but with those lines from Sister Sifim, from the land of the free.